'Cause I'm a cowboy. I got the night on my side. 'Cause I'm wanted, wanted, dead or alive. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, the podcast where Matt and Todd watch a Netflix top 10 movie from their list that's typically on the homepage when you get onto Netflix, and then we talk about it, share our feelings about it, maybe share some interesting things about it if we found anything interesting about it, and then you hear it and hopefully you're happy. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and welcome to another episode from me as well. As you could possibly guess from Todd's intro musical performance today, nice job, Todd.
Thank you.
We are watching a movie. We watched a movie about cowboys. In
Yes.
fact, it's called Concrete Cowboy. So, this movie is about urban cowboys in Philadelphia. And we'll get more into that after I tell you who's in it.
Mm-hmm.
The main stars are Idris Elba and Caleb McLaughlin.
Not related to Sarah McLaughlin. Just in case
Not
anyone's
likely.
curious.
Not likely.
Yeah.
But he did appear as Lucas in Stranger Things.
Yes.
Method Man is also in this movie.
Yep.
And I wouldn't call him famous, but Gerald Jerome we've seen before.
Oh, have we?
In a movie called Moonlight. He
Ah.
played the teenage version of whatever the guy's name was in Moonlight.
The actual main character or the friend of the main character?
The actual main character.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
At least if
Well, that's a pretty interesting tidbit there, Matt.
Yeah. Kevin, age 16.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty much it for people that I recognized.
I didn't recognize really
Anyone
anyone
else?
else.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I have, yes. Yeah. No idea. I thought maybe something, and then I looked further into it, and I was like, no. I don't know this woman.
No.
Never mind.
Well, it's all good. So, what is this movie about? Well, I mentioned it's about urban cowboys, and I didn't know very much about urban cowboys before watching this movie, but it's based on kind of true facts, true things that exist in the world.
Yeah.
So basically, you've got two things going on here. You've got the kind of exploration of what it means to have horses in a city like Philadelphia. And so you've got this group of people who Idris Elba's character Harp is kind of the leader of, I guess you would say. And they all have their horses in like this building that they rent out, and they ride their horses around the streets and parks of Philadelphia. So that's kind of one aspect of it. But then the other part is that you have this story about a boy who lives with his mother. He's getting into trouble. It's like the reverse of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, because he's getting in trouble in Detroit, and then he moves to Philadelphia from Detroit. There's no Bel-Air, but you know.
Yeah.
So
was
he
with
moves
you.
in. He moves in with his dad, who is Harp, and he has to he has to figure out if he's going to be a cowboy, an urban cowboy, or live the life of a drug dealer. So those are his two choices in this movie. Kind of a common sort of theme, but with some interesting little twists thrown in. Um, the twists being cowboys in the city, I guess. So, and that's kind of it. I guess there's also this kind of subplot also of the people kind of gentrification and the people coming to take away the horses and trying to shut them down and stuff like that. That's going along with it. Like times are changing, kind of
Yeah.
um, that whole subtext, if you will, is happening at the same time. So that's Concrete Cowboy. Todd, what did you think of this film?
Well, what's the first like just super interesting thing about this film to me is that it really seemed like the story wise it felt like it was heavily borrowed from Boys in the Hood, but add horses. And that was like I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying like it felt like that's what I was watching. Like you have the same story of, kid living with his mom, dad's not totally in the picture. He's messing up with his mom. He's got to go live with his dad for a little bit. His dad is kind of like a hard guy, is a little demanding and different things, except for in Boys of the Hood, the dad was at all times trying to teach a hard lesson. And this movie, it's about the dad is this urban cowboy who lives his life a certain way and is kind of trying to teach some lessons, but almost just not really. He's just existing, and there's hardship to be followed. So, that being said, I didn't like absolutely 100% love this movie, but I thought it was a pretty good movie to watch. It was very interesting. You had all the elements of like a typical inner city movie, black people inner city movie, and then they threw horses on top of it. This whole like subculture of these places that apparently exist that have this horse kind of teach responsibility by teaching, to care and ride horses. And I think just like any movie that has this kind of element of like almost like a quote unquote bad element, and then there's something that pulls the bad element a little bit out of their badness. It just it was good, but it felt pretty formulaic. Like everything almost felt like it had been done in another movie, except for the horse thing, which I guess the horse thing had been done in other non-inner city movies like that. So it didn't like make me totally dislike the movie, but I would feel remiss if I didn't mention that it just felt like it borrowed a lot from other movies, even though it's about this real subculture. And I would, for me, I would blame the Hollywood aspect of that. Like they had to make a story with this subculture, and the story they made just felt very done before. And I don't really want to ruin it for anyone, so I'm not going to go into too many specifics. But of course, the kid has a friend, and his friend is like really into the bad stuff. And every time he's getting into the bad stuff, it's because he's with the friend, and then he needs to choose. He's very reluctant to be with the horses, but then he starts to accept both sides, and eventually he has to choose and stuff like that. And some other kind of very cliche things happen along the way. And I'm not trying to say all that as like a huge knock against the movie. It's just felt like something I had to point out. Besides those things, though, I thought this was a fine movie. None of those things made it a bad movie. It just was lacking a little bit in the originality department of a story, I thought. I thought the acting was pretty well done, except for some people who I were like, I don't know if... I was like, these people aren't doing that well. But it's because you find out that there's some of the actual urban cowboy writers who, like, they just tapped to be in this movie. Like, which is kind of, as I was watching it, I was like, was my thought behind it. I was like, these people are not as strong as some of these other actors who are in this movie. But I was like, maybe, just maybe they're some of the real people they just threw in and stuff like that. And that turned out to be true. So typically I'll give people like that a pass because they're not doing their actual job. They're just trying to create a moment for all the other people to experience that they experience, if that makes sense. So I think this is a good movie to watch. Not necessarily a family movie. There's a lot of harsh language in it, and definitely some drugs and some stuff that go along with that kind of stuff. But you know, if you've got an hour and some change, I can't remember how long this movie was, maybe an hour and 50, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
If you got some time, then go ahead, watch this movie. You know, it stripped all that away. It was very interesting to learn about this subculture, people who I had no idea they existed. Like, so even if like you end up not liking the movie, it's very interesting to find out about these people who I had no idea about. So, yeah, that's how I'll leave it. Matt, how did you feel about this cowboys who are urban?
Cowboys who are urban, who are concrete.
Concrete, yes.
Well, I think you nailed a few key parts of this, and I think yes, it's an interesting movie. The interesting stuff is what you're learning about the urban cowboys and how they operate and that stuff. Two, it's a formulaic kind of coming of age, figure out how to live life as a young man who's growing up. And that's paint by numbers. You've seen it before, and now that you say it, you're right. It does borrow a lot from Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
In theme and style. And then you had kind of this. Well, you mentioned the people who were actual urban cowboys that were in this and were members of this particular stable in real life, which was kind of cool. You got at the end, you got to hear from them a little bit, and learn about kind of their thoughts on what they did and how they did it. So that's pretty cool. And I think overall the acting was decent from the people, like you say, the people who are actors by trade, carried the movie pretty well, and did a decent job with that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff being acting, of course. Way to go, actors.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, you know. Whatever it may be, that kind of stuff.
Oh, anyway, I enjoyed myself watching this movie, and yeah, no reason if you're okay with an R-rated movie that you shouldn't watch this. I think, it's a good way to spend your time, and I enjoyed myself watching it myself. So there you go.
Yeah. Totally. I would say something I was thinking of while you were talking is that one bad experience for me in this movie is that as I was watching the movie, every time they showed the main Stranger Things kid, all I kept thinking was, man, they got to pump out some more seasons because these kids are growing up. Like, it was like they can't continue to have this show about these little kids anymore.
Yeah, it's true. I
Ugh,
think Stranger Things season 4 is around the corner, but
yeah, man. So, anywho, coming back to the old Concrete Cowboys here, Matt. How I was gonna say how much, but I haven't even said it out yet. How many Air Jordans would you give this movie? 0 to 5. There's a almost a tiny subplot about some Air Jordans in this movie, and obviously 0 not being good because you don't have any Air Jordans, but then 5 being the best because I guess you can never own more than 5 pairs of Air Jordans at a time. That must be an unwritten rule someplace.
it at least is in our rating system
Yeah.
because you can't get more than 5 rated things, although we've never given out of 5.
Not yet.
Um,
Who knows?
Not
One
yet.
day.
It could happen. I see it as unlikely, but it still could happen. Once we see the perfect movie, all others will be judged by that movie when we give it a 5.
Mm, sure.
Well, I would say if we look at the different pieces here, the acting, pretty good. The plot, pretty average, pretty formulaic. And then kind of what you get with the urban cowboy scene. I think overall that's a pretty positive grade for me when I average everything up. I'm going to go with like per 3.1. 3.1.
3.1.
Uh,
There you have it.
3.1 Air Jordans out of 5.
Mm. Um, I think I'm gonna be a little less than you. I think I'm at a 2.8, and um, I think it gets that high with me because of just the interesting facts of watching a movie about these urban cowboys, these concrete cowboys who I knew nothing about. Gets it up that high for me, but I really feel like they just over Hollywooded this movie up. Like, this will probably be the 10th podcast in a row that I'll say sometimes simpler is better. And they just really Hollywooded it up. If they had just stripped a little bit more of that, not made it a documentary, but it just didn't have to be so cliche. And I think that really hurt it for me. So I'm at a 2.8. I think that's where I'm going to be.
Okay.
Unless you feel like changing my mind, go ahead if you want to.
No, you got to go with your gut.
Yep,
That's our bread and butter, gut
true.
reactions. So that's going to put us at, I believe, 2.95 out of 5 pairs of Air Jordans. Are these
Hmm.
individual shoes, Todd, or are these pairs?
Pairs of Air Jordans. Yeah.
Pairs. Okay, makes sense.
10 shoes total, but
Right,
yeah,
right. So we've got almost 3 pairs of Air Jordans.
it's not bad.
Um, it's not bad. It's slightly above average, and that's where we end up with Concrete Cowboy. And I will now reveal the next Netflix movie we'll be watching.
Alrighty.
The #1 movie in America today on Netflix is called What Lies Below.
Oh, interesting. I thought you were gonna say because I was on Netflix today to watch the movie, and I saw Saving Private Brian was on there, and I was like, is that gonna be the next movie? But apparently not. No.
No, it's #3.
Mm.
Anyway, the tagline here is her mom's new beau is handsome, charming, and too good to be true. But slowly, uh, a monster in hiding reveals itself.
Oh.
So
I thought I was taking a turn, but like, and then a monster attacks the village or something like that. It's like, oh, I gotta deal with all these emotional problems and now this physical problem of a monster.
yeah, no actual monster. Just
Oh man,
well, it still could be, I guess, but it doesn't seem like that type of movie.
shame. I hope
So
some movie exec was listening to this and being like, "Wow, that sounds like a good movie."
that's
gotta
right.
put that, gotta put that on the Sci-Fi Channel or something.
Yeah, could take a great turn in a movie. Introduce a
Nice.
monster randomly. Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we reviewed Concrete Cowboy and liked it a bit. We think you should watch it, maybe. But anyway, thank you for listening. We hit a milestone in the podcast
Yeah,
just
we did.
today, which was 4,000 downloads since we started the podcast. So we're excited about
Boom,
that.
boom.
Thank you for listening and downloading, and we'll keep making these. And see you later.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da.
da da da.